It's probably going to feed back. Because Google's fucked my settings. Microsoft has changed everything.
Welcome to your awakening.
Welcome.
Please take hold of your reality adjusted.
No, right. Quick, mute the telly again. There we go. Right. Thanks, Microsoft, for messing everything up for me. Stop screen share. Welcome back again, folks. Greetings and well met. I will get there in 2 seconds. I'm doing my usual multitasking, opening windows and shuffling them around so I can see what I'm doing. And, I think I'd have all this stuff ready, but there's these people who keep talking to me while I'm trying to get stuff ready. And because they're talking to me, I feel I have to reply. So then before we realise it, it's time to click the broadcast button. So I'm always in this stumbling mess of, I got a minute, I'll get the windows open, get started and actually do something. Sorry. Look at the chat room. Hello, everyone in the chat room. Welcome back once again. Another episode of Sol Excalibre on this Moon Day evening of the 25th of the 2nd, 2019. That's the star date. It's been quite an interesting week and weekend. If you haven't noticed, there's a hell of a lot of energy flying around. Peter mentioned it last week, talking about you can sense the energy. And the last week, especially over the weekend, it's really been buzzing. I forgot to click the right button. I forgot to send invites to some people. I will get on that while I'm yabbering. I'll try sending to... where's he gone? Oh, man, Skype, your shit. This modern technology is getting worse. It's supposed to be getting better, but it's not. It's getting worse. Things run slower. Everything's cluttered. Everything keeps getting reset or changed back to default or upgraded and updated in such a way that it messes up what you were doing in the first place. And I'm sure there'll be a few people out there that will be shouting, why are you still on a Microsoft computer? Why don't you get somebody else? I was stuck with this kind of stuff because it's what is the mainstream. So I get to see what the mainstream sees in the sense of how the operating system works, what functions are available, what are not available. I want to be able to see what it is that they're utilizing and what they're selling to the general populace. So although I could put together a Linux system or something like that, which would probably be much more comfortable and functional to use, it means I'd end up having to have 2 systems or a dual boot drive or something like that, and I'd have to keep swapping back and forth just so I could see what's going on in the mainstream world this week in terms of computer stuff. And considering the computer and especially the social media environment is not really my world in many ways. It hasn't bothered me that I end up having to, slug through a lot of the crap that they throw at the general populace, because I don't want to be here all the time. I don't want to be on social media all the time. I don't want to do a lot of the things that they try to get people to do via the technology. That's a brilliant picture, Tony. Sorry, I can't show you that now. Maybe later. But yeah, that's a brilliant picture. So anyway, yes. Now that I've finished spamming invites out, so should I send invites to James and Webby? What do you think? Do you think I should invite them or not? Because I don't want to get drawn into certain conversations, because I know that I would end up getting quite assertive and vociferous about the whole situation. But I'll send an invite, because if they want to join in and have a chat, or just join in as we chat in kind of thing, they're very welcome to. But I'm really not into all that other stuff. Maybe it's worth me explaining some of that. Just been, or listened to some of the Raconteurs News guys tonight on their channel. I had a guest on talking about a few different topics, but they're all geared around the same area. And I could go into loads of detail. I could go into literally hours upon hours upon hours of stuff, of data, of information, of arguments, of reasoning, of propaganda, etc., etc., etc. And that's what they want you to do. They don't care if you're pro or against the argument. They just want you to get involved, because there are no answers, no complete answer. Like people wanting to know what shape the world is, the only way you're going to find out is if you can go up into space and look down on it for yourself, because they will not yet anyway. They might in the future, but they will not show you an honest, complete and unaltered picture, because there's too much military sensitive information in those pictures. That's the whole point of NASA. It's a shop front. It's a public cover to disguise what the military industrial complex has been doing up in near space and what they call space for decades now. 6-7 decades they've been working on this stuff. So the entire argument of because NASA lies, that proves it's flat, that is a fallacy. That is just bad thinking. Yes, NASA lies. That means you have to use discernment and question the information you're being presented and critically think about it. Doesn't prove the shape of the world one way or the other. But there's many other ways you can approach that question of, well, what shape is it? And I'm sorry, but over the many years that I've looked at information, it's not flat. Yeah, let's just leave it at that. It's not flat. I'm not interested in getting into a debate. I'm not interested in people demanding that I prove what I say, because that's exactly what this PSYOP wants, to trap you into perpetual argumentation. Because no matter what proof is presented to these people who push this PSYOP, they will just refute it and carry on pushing out their fantasy bullshit. Because that's the point of it, to create cognitive confusion and pathological doubt. You can't know anything. You can't even trust your own eyes, because your own eyes are a hologram. How can a hologram see light? How can a round thing perceive something flat? There are no answers deliberately, because they don't want you to find an answer. They just want you to expend all your time and energy arguing over details, stuck in the rabbit hole. This is Cass Sunstein. If you don't know that guy's name, please go and look him up. This stuff did not start recently. It's not contained to just one topic like the flat earth. That guy was deliberately trying to appropriate lots of other topics. He might have been doing it of his own free will, of his own choice. I don't know. But a lot of the arguments he was using are well proven to be false. And a lot of the claims that he was making are classically serving the narrative, serving the agenda. Because eventually, if you bother to pursue these questions, they lead you back to one point. Do you believe in a creator? That's it. It's all about, do you have faith in a God? If you have faith in a God, then of course the world could be flat, because God could have made it flat. And he could just make you think that you're seeing a round thing, because God's all powerful, so God can do anything. God could have made the world up 5 minutes ago and put all those memories in your head that you think you've had a life that's however long. No, you were just created 5 minutes ago. In infinite doubt, you can't know anything. But if you have faith, and I think I mentioned this last week, when you trace the roots of this back, I first learned about the Flat Earth Society in the 90s when I was reading the Fortean Times. Nothing to do with the internet. Yeah, and I found out it was set up in the early 1900s, and you look at who some of the funding come from and what it was all based on and the ideas it was trying to push, and it was the early form of Christian Zionism. So that's what it's all about, folks. Do you have a faith? Oh, you do. You have a faith in this idea that we're selling you. Guess what? That idea is based on the Judean-Christian God. So therefore, if you believe that, you accept our authority over you, because we were first, mate. Our God made this world, as the Buddhists would do. So no, it doesn't entertain me, because after seeing this stuff for so many years now, because this didn't start recently, we were talking about this in 2015. I mentioned Jeff C at this point because I'll come back to that, because I appeared on his live Jeff C and Friends on Friday night. But at one point the topic came up, like it often does, because it's one of those questions that keeps getting promoted because every fucker keeps promoting it. They want you to talk about this subject. Look up conspiracy theories on YouTube. I guarantee you probably the first result that comes up is flat earth. Why is that? Why has every flat earth video got millions of views? Because YouTube is promoting it. They want people to talk about that shit because it's fictional. And then you're not talking about real conspiracies where people could be held culpable for crimes. Simple. Simples. Yeah, I'm not telling people to not investigate questions that they're curious about. But don't tell me it's entertainment when these people are deliberately pushing a psyop that just fucks with people's heads because it gives them a stream of wrong think, of bad think. And I don't mean that in a big brother sense. It's wrong thing as it's wrong think because it is illogical. It's faulty reasoning. It's based on fallacies. It's based on ephemeral presumptions. That is not a good argument, and that is not a good basis to claim that you know anything or that we know the world's controlled because these people have changed everything in history. No, you don't know. There is a difference, which is why, to me, you want to talk about those questions, you want to ask those curiosities, then you help people find out about things like epistemology, which is basically the philosophical academic jargon which references what is knowledge, where does knowledge come from, how do we attain knowledge, is it revelatory knowledge from a creator being, or is it scientific knowledge, empirical knowledge that's going through scientific experimentation? That will help people look at any question and figure for themselves whether what they're looking at is a presumption or a fallacy, or it requires you to just have faith because there is no other proof that can be provided. Help people learn about things like that, but don't just give them perpetual doubt, perpetual pathological doubt, because that's what these psyops are made for. I call it the Mandela effect, because that's what it does to people's brains. You're going Mandela, mate. That is so perfectly keyed to the control of data movement on the internet, because it's all about them being able to respond with an official standard response of, no, you didn't read that evidence last week on the internet proving that the Prime Minister was committing treason, which means she could be tried in a court of law. No, you didn't. What you actually read was an article about melons. Here you go, I can show you the link, because they've altered that article using their digital control so that you can be confused and go, oh, it must be the Mandela effect. I thought it was just to do with names of cereals and movies, but now it's to do with politics as well. What a surprise. This is why I get quite assertive about this, because this stuff is caustic. It's toxic. When we speak from my own point of view, I'm collectivizing saying we, but I know other people have a similar point of view. When I'm often complaining about how entertainment is used to manipulate people's psychology, to give them corrupted, malformed psychology. I've talked about it before. It's like the crooked house. If you give people a crooked tool set, they'll only ever build a crooked house. There's no solid foundations for them to create a mansion. It just won't happen. So all you'll have is bad robots that keep falling over the same logical mistakes, the same emotional presumptions, and they never achieve any coordination to be any threat to your hold on power. They're occupied arguing about whether a fart is this shape or this shape. You know, farting in a cardboard box, is it the shape of the box or is it still amorphous inside? Schrodinger's cat. Yeah. This kind of stuff is toxic, and it's deliberately created to appropriate what's going on in this environment. YouTube, very much so, but it's the whole internet, basically. It's not just one platform. And as the platforms have coalesced and amalgamated into these fewer and fewer big brother companies that are blatantly part of the corporatist system, now they're not private companies, they are part of the system. They have a CEO and a pretend fascia that makes them seem like a private company, but they're not. The majority of them were all started by the agencies as well, via In-Q-Tel and other groups that brought in the seed funding and recruited the patsies such as Suckerturd. Yeah, they got him to basically pretend that he'd made this entire system called Facebook. He was just the front face for it. So when I'm complaining about how the media and entertainment is used to fuck with people's heads, that's why I don't find the claim of it's just entertaining to be valid. As far as I'm concerned, it's not. To me, that would be the same as showing people pictures of violent pornography. And I know people, you know, they'll say, no, it's nothing like that. It's nothing like that. It's just a bit of fantasy. It's just a bit of fun. But in the same way that those kind of images can mess with people's thinking, mess with their heads, mess with their energy, these psyops are the same shit. They are there to mess with people's thinking, misdirect them, trap them into belief systems that serve the narratives, and just occupy their time. A few weeks ago, I was talking about the situation as it's going to grow, where there will be less and less jobs, and more of the jobs will be automated. You know, people like to say robots, but robots isn't really the complete answer, because a lot of the systems will be on the cloud, on the internet, so they're not robots per se. But when that starts to happen, there'll be more and more people who are maybe not called unemployed. I'm doing a lot of bunny ears tonight, so they may not be called unemployed, but they will be unemployed, and they'll need something to keep them occupied. So they'll have things to do online. And as the financial system collapses and they switch it to a digital system, which they will, this is another reason why they brought in the cryptocurrencies. When it switches over to that digital system, they introduce something like social crediting. And Max Egan, if you listen again, please stop pinching my arguments and my rhetoric. If you want to chat with me, send me a message. But stop just running off with my arguments and my rhetoric and then claiming that you're so clever. When they introduce that social crediting, your earnings, your credit values will be generated by where your retention goes in that online environment, on that social media environment. So all those people doing things like chasing those kind of supposedly entertaining questions will all be generating income in the system. So they want people to be to be hooked in. Sorry, coughing at you. They want people to be hooked into those kind of questions because they serve no purpose against the system. If you try to raise that point, let's just take the flat earth as one single thing. If you think you've got evidence that proves it, and you try to raise that in a public way, such as you attempt to prosecute some people in power for hiding this truth and thereby damaging the public in that, you know, using or malforming what the truth is and lying to the public, you really think you're going to get anywhere? You really think you're going to achieve anything other than getting yourself labeled as mentally ill and locked up? And your energy and your protest will serve the narrative of controlling this digital environment and controlling what is and what is not allowed to be talked about because of the mentally ill people who talk about crazy shit. In a way, that jumps me nicely to one of the things I wanted to mention. Yes, tonight's show is full of energy. I just noticed you in the chat, Jason. You're welcome to join in, mate, if you want. Like I said, I might get a bit about this because it does fucking wind me up. Because it is nasty. Some of it is nasty, especially the Mandela effect, because that just blows people's entire history out of their heads. And it's just rubbish. Anyway, yeah, the one thing I wanted to mention was, well, in the subtitles tonight, he's surfing the Rubicon. I'll try and explain that as we go. It's basically like recently, the last weekend, here in the UK, Theresa May has been, she may not. They might delay it. They might have a no deal. They might renegotiate them. Oh, we just don't know what's happening. So you're not crossing the Rubicon. You're on the Rubicon. You're trying to get to the other side, but these fuckers are taking you fucking surfing down the river. That as well, the situation in America is very similar with a lot of the stuff that's going on there. It's high distraction output from the media. And there's some major changes, major things going to happen within the next few months, within the next week, probably. Certainly in relation to Venezuela, things are probably going to accelerate quite rapidly. I remember saying this about Egypt years ago, and we watched it happen. Anyway, mention that, yeah. Surfing the Rubicon, the Iron Moon. If you didn't know, Israel has gone to the moon. So they obviously don't believe in a flat earth, do they? Does that compute? Or does that just trip you over into logic malfunction? The Judeo-Christian theology, which is what flat earth argument is based on, are going to the moon. I thought rockets didn't work in space because the world's flat. But the Israelis are going there. I wonder why. And if you don't get the cultural reference, and yeah, I'm being deliberately sarcastic, please don't take it personally. Yeah, I'm being sarcastic to the idea and the concepts and people's denial of this kind of shit happening around them. If you don't get the cultural reference, there was a movie quite a few years ago called Iron Sky, which was a really good storyline idea. The Nazis didn't lose, well, not all of them lost. They'd been secretly working on steam-powered or some, basic kind of UFO technology, and they sent people off to the moon who built a base on the dark side of the moon. And now in the time of the movie, which I think was the early noughties, something like that, they're coming back again. The Nazis are coming back in their tin-plated UFOs to invade the Earth. It's a comedic movie. There's some really good scenes in there, like when the one character, the main protagonist, is introducing a woman who's a teacher for these Nazis on the moon. He introduces her to the Great Dictator movie starring Charlie Chaplin. Yeah, and you might get some of the connections there back to the tribe, etc., and the Nazis, and they're going back to the moon, folks. Is it going to be Iron Moon? What are they going to do? They're going to plant a flag and then build a wall around it? Yeah, they're going to wall off the dark side of the moon because it's full of terrorists. That terrorist threw a rock and it went all the way to Jupiter. Terrorist, build a wall. And at the same time, Mr. Icky gets banned from Australia. He's not allowed to speak in Australia. And the excuse used is that he's anti-Semitic and they don't want his kind of stuff in Australia. Some of the things said was to do with the usual kind of lizard label stuff and whatever, but really it's about the anti-Semitism. And when you look at the people who lobbied the government to get him banned, that's what it connects back to. Again, the tribe manipulating what people are or are not allowed to see and talk about. I've watched several of Ike's multi-hour broadcasts. In total, I've watched literally hundreds of hours of Ike's presentations. I've read, I think, 2 of his books and half read a few more. I've looked at them. And I've looked at a lot of his information. I've followed up a lot of his information. And as I've said many times to people in the past, I don't trust him, but there's a hell of a lot of information there that you might find valuable and will give you signposts in loads of different directions. So it's worth looking at. It is worth your time. It's up to you if you want to go as far as believing the stuff about lizards and stuff like that. Personally, I don't. I don't think there are lizard entities that shapeshift into human form. I think it's more about energy and energetic beings, similar to the ideas of the archons and the jinn and stuff like that. That's something I could come back to later because it connects to other stuff I wanted to talk about. So yeah, he's banned from Australia. And as I say, it's like some of his stuff, some people think he's a bit way out there. But the vast body of his information, you can follow the paper trails, you can look at the evidence, you can look at the reasoned arguments, etc., etc., etc. It has validity. And he could be a Pied Piper. He could be painting narratives for the agendas. But that doesn't mean you should just ignore everything he's doing. And if anything, when somebody like him gets banned from somewhere from speaking, that's an indication of how the narratives are playing out. For them to make a point on the global stage, they need somebody like him so that they can ban him. And then everybody goes, oh, look, they banned this guy who wants to talk about anti-Semitism and aliens and lizards. Oh, so it raises the point again in everybody's mind. We'll only let you speak if you adhere to our requirements. And if you don't, we have enough influence to make entire governments bend to our will and block you from speaking. Entire governments. Well, I'm saying that in the sense that there was enough people within the Australian government to actually get this to happen. It probably wasn't the entire number of people who are involved in government in Australia. Yeah, I'm sure there's some people that may very well have bought tickets to his speech or whatever, but they don't want him to talk. And that serves the purpose of that narrative of reinforcing their point of view that they've subliminally and both directly and subliminally put out there for many years, that you cannot criticize those who rule over you. I'm paraphrasing the Voltaire quote of you can't question, to find out who rules over you, find out who you can't criticize. So they're making it blatantly obvious. These are the rules of conversation. You are not allowed to mention this, and you have to mention this. And some of that is lies. So they're asking you to join in with their psychological, energetic, spiritual abuse of everybody else on the planet and reinforce their claims to authority, their justification. Now, and like I said the other week about other people, some of the stuff he talks about, I can't be arsed listening to it anymore because I've been round that circus ring a few times. I'm sort of like, okay, yeah, I can take this away from it, but I don't need the rest of the shit. Cheers, man. I don't agree with you on some of that stuff, and move on. So I can't be asked. I'm not exactly championing for him to speak or whatever, but I'm championing for the point of free speech. I would rather be able to hear somebody talk about crazy shit than them not being allowed to talk about crazy shit. And please, I know people think, it's not congruent with what you were saying earlier about people talking about stuff that's, out there in fantasy. To me, it's not about the being fantasy. It's about how it is deliberately geared to mess with people's psychology. Again, I'll reference Cass Sunstein. If you don't know about the guy, please go and research him. Research the connections through 9/11, through the whole PNAC affair, through the whole change of the internet, because it was at that time that the internet started to change into this social media cloud kind of setup, where they were building virtual fences basically and herding people into certain directions, such as certain platforms, the ones that they had set up. So it's not natural, it's not organic that YouTube became the primary video platform on the internet. Not at all. Same with Facebook, same with Twitter, same with Reddit, Wikipedia. A lot of the major sites on the internet did not develop organically. They were promoted and pushed. And in the same way, certain topics that are deliberately damaging to people are promoted and pushed. I think I mentioned it earlier. If you do a search, you'll get thousands, literally thousands of videos about flat Earth. You will get 8-hour podcasts, thousands of them, about flat Earth. How many podcasts can you find about the Sandy Hook hoax? How many videos can you find covering 9/11 in depth? Not just look, two planes, they felt it, terrible. No, in-depth research into those questions, into those points. They're getting less and less and less. So if all you want is to be entertained to death, maybe learn something from it, move on. Don't let it soak up all your time. Don't let it soak up all your energy. And please be so on your toes about the way it fucks with your thinking, the way it gives you bad logic and then it demands that you believe it. And if you don't, you're a globetard, or you're just working for the enemy. You're a NASA agent, you're Illuminati, whatever other label they can use to try and psychologically manipulate you, to control you, to poke at your fears of social rejection and isolation. Truth doesn't need company. Truth can stand on its own. It's not required. It doesn't require you to click like to validate its existence. It will still be there whether you click like or not. Sorry again. Like I said, I'm ranting about it because that stuff does wind me up. And I know that's why in the past, some people have deliberately tried to insert it into this environment. And I would forewarn both you guys, Jason and Webby, Paul, but I don't know what your attitude is on this kind of stuff. It's up to you what you do with your channel, obviously. But please be aware of the fact that some people out there will want to get on your platform so that they can appropriate it. Yeah, they want to put their message out on your platform. And if their message is connecting back to those psyop topics that are deliberately meant to drag people away from other things and take them back into that mainstream herd, where questions such as flat Earth and Mandalala are now trendy. They're now being talked about by the biggest channels on YouTube. But you're telling me these are the real secret questions that would reveal the truth of the control system and the evil that's going on in the world, really? And yet it's promoted like fuck all over the place. You really think the system would allow the absolute truth of what's really going on to be promoted like fuck? That's denial, cognitive dissonance. Makes no sense, mate. That is illogical. It's illogical, Mr. Spark. But I could rant about this for hours. And like I said near the beginning, I've already spent a good 20 plus minutes on it. That's part of what they want you to do. They don't care if you agree or not. They don't care if you debunk it. They don't care if you do similar like what I'm doing now, where you try and explain to people why it's a psyop and what's going on with it and why it's fucking with you and why you shouldn't want anything to do with it other than researching it off your own bat without the hooks of social validation and herding and groupthink. Fuck that. Yeah, fucking. They're quite happy for all of us to be bouncing backwards and forwards and arguing about this kind of shit. That's exactly what they want. That's why both those questions, Flat Earth and Mandalala, are things that you can never prove or disprove. Just like the question of, is there a God? You cannot prove it or disprove it. So it's argumentum ad infinitum. And when they dominate this environment such that they can promote and appropriate the conversation to talk about what they want people to talk about, bang, job done. Again, as the Buddhists would do. As far as Cass Sunstein is concerned, job done. As far as J-Trig are concerned, job done. As far as GCHQ in general is concerned, job done. As far as the 6 eyes are concerned, job done. The majority of the populace is so far up their own ass or exploring the fluff in their belly button, they're not going to notice what the fuck's going on. And even when they do, they go, oh, well, I can't believe it because I can't believe my own eyes, because they're round and they're holographic, and I don't know what's fucking coming into them. I don't know what's happening from one moment to the next. I can't believe that. My cereal used to be called leprechauns, now it's called something else. What the fuck? I mentioned as well many times recently the documentary by Adam Curtis, Hypernormalization. That's exactly the kind of shit he was describing. You won't know what the fuck the system is doing because you hit this barrier of chaotic confusion that's deliberately there to try and slow you down. It's like bramble bushes around the fortress. You ain't even getting anywhere near the fortress walls yet because you're going round in circles in those bramble bushes. If the world is flat, does that stop nuclear war? If Mandela is true, does that stop cancer? If either of these subjects are true, does it stop the institutionalized paedophilia of the control system that is used to dominate people into making decisions or carrying out orders that are against the general populace but serve those above them? Will it change any of those things? No. It will not, no matter how much proof you claim to have to show that you're right, because that's not the end goal of those psyops. So Israel on the moon, connected into this, part of the reason why I use paedophilia as a connecting dot. It could do, mate. Yeah, it could cause it to cease to exist. Yeah. Jason asks, if cancer exists, does the Mandela effect cease to exist, or vice versa? Yeah, maybe tomorrow cancer will just vanish from the planet because of Mandela effect. You know, they'll send it through a portal to Uranus and it'll be done. Yes, the reason I mentioned the paedophilia is because recently there was a claim, there was this guy who put up a video on YouTube claiming that he'd found this black hole into a world of paedophiles that were time coding videos on the internet so that other paedophiles could find them and skip through them to find scenes of children where there could be a sexual element or revealing elements, such as kids in swimsuits on a beach and stuff like that. He claims he's found this as if by magic. Yeah, it's just one day he was like, oh, look, a rabbit hole. I'll jump in the rabbit hole. Oh. So it'd been really just too silly for this subject, but I feel it has to be taken the piss out of, because to me it just reeks of control system. He claims he discovered this loophole so that he could supposedly fairly and objectively explore this loophole and present that to the public. He started a whole new channel. He closed off his old original channel on which he had a lot of subscribers, a lot of videos. He was fairly well known on the internet. People knew about him, etc. He shut that one down and started a brand new channel with nothing on it, no subscribers, no videos. He then made this video explaining this black hole that he'd found in the YouTube's comment section. That video got to over 2 million views within less than 2 days. It was just something like 28, 30 hours, it had up to 2 point something million views. That's not organic. That's not real. That's not the way the algorithms work. So his video got promoted from the shadows. Brand new channel, no videos, which means the algorithm can't sort of connect an audience to him based on his content. No subscribers, so there's nobody coming in from there. You know, brand new, just boom, here you go, everyone, look at my shit. And he got over 2 million views in less than 2 days. And it just so happens that his black hole was a perfect excuse so that YouTube could immediately come out and say, oh, right, because of this terrible paedophilia shit, we're going to start controlling the comments section. So from now on, there'll be more censorship in the comments section. Does anybody, I know this is a horrible thing to do, but does anybody ever try to use critical thinking and use a logical, objective perception of how a paedophile would think and the kind of things that they would do or attempt to do to feed their fucked upness, whatever you want to call it, feed their illness? Do you really think that the massive, supposedly there's a lot of them out there judging by the numbers that have been revealed over the years, I'm not just talking about the recent stuff connected to, like, you know, some of the psyops and some of the social media panics, the moral panics that they've tried to deliberately push. And again, appropriating a narrative. Supposedly in the UK, the only paedophile rings that have existed in the UK for the past few years are all Muslim. There's no white paedophiles. There's no police paedophiles. There's no politician paedophile. Oh, no, they're all Muslim guys. So that subject perfectly suits YouTube being able to step in and control the comment section. Convenient? Coincidental? Yeah, you really think these paedophiles haven't thought of this kind of shit before? You really think they haven't, like, either in groups or singular, hunting videos on YouTube, like little girl in swimsuit bending over and all this kind of nasty shit? You think they haven't done that already? The only difference now is all of a sudden, for some crazy reason, these paedophiles are obsessed with hiding themselves, most of them anyway, all of a sudden decided to publicly reveal themselves by typing time codes into a comment section on a video. Does that make any logical sense to you? Other than it was orchestrated deliberately, a false flag to give YouTube, Google, the justification to heavily control the comment section. Blocking people, blocking links, shadow banning, blah, 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 blah. So this, to me, you know, these connecting to the psyops. When you look at what Cass Sunstein was talking about at the time, and you do have to explore the possibilities, because obviously he was working for the government, which means there'd only be a certain amount that he would say publicly. He would not tell you all the ways that they were doing what they're doing and what they're planning to try and all the kind of ways they could alter the digital tech to make it more in their favor. He wouldn't tell you any of that shit, no. He makes a few public statements about how they are going to really start to put an immense amount of effort into controlling information online and affecting people's perception. In other words, the worst elements of propaganda, the worst elements of governmental manipulation of information such that it affects your perception and therefore affects your daily life, your decision making, your thinking, your well-being, your emotional health. Why did the BBC show us a picture of a dead baby on a beach? Affects your mental health. Why do they want you talking about a subject where you cannot prove whether something had the same name on it from 5 years ago because some weird technology can suddenly change things in history? So in other words, you can't know anything because anything could be changed at any moment. So you can't trust any of the information you're finding online because it could change at any moment. This kind of stuff is, you've got to get your head around the fact that these people will do the absolute most despicable, nasty, underhanded, vile things just to achieve what they want. So do you think they'll pretend to have a paedophile panic? Do you think they'd actually encourage paedophiles to go hunting on YouTube so that then they can point these people out to the public and go, see, bad guy in a mask sneaking around looking for kiddies? This shit is deliberate. Comments controlled, yeah. And at the same time, and possibly connected into reasoning for what they've done recently, it could just be part of the general narrative of them wanting to control the movement of information online. But it could also have been deliberately thrown out quickly to give the American populace, because it's mainly targeted at them, that viewer demographic, to give them something to talk about, to occupy their time, while the American regime is busy invading Venezuela and doing other shit, because we know they're doing other shit. Yeah, you had I think mentioned last week, the Jussie Smollett shit. You know, all these things are getting more and more ridiculous to some fairly simplistic observation and objective questioning, critical thinking of the information and how it's presented, the rhetoric used, the arguments claimed, etc., etc. Now it's starting to get so ridiculous. We're on the Rubicon. Like I said earlier, maybe we haven't quite reached the other bank yet, because I do feel that there's some major changes going to happen soonish, like potentially the Brexit fuck up, like potentially the situation in France continuing to escalate and becoming another kind of French Spring or Brexit or something. It's not going to go away anytime soon. Yeah, and other similar things are happening in other countries. And Venezuela is in a similar much worse situation, because they've been subjected to the economic hitmen for decades, and the abuse over the Colombian border, the drug cartels, etc. Those people have the same energy that's spreading halfway around the world. People are getting to the point where what the system is doing is so ridiculous, it's so over the top, it's fairly blatant and obvious, that when you chat to people in general, in public, or amongst your friends, your relatives, whatever, you find that the majority of people don't believe it. They might not know what's going on. They might not necessarily have an idea of this, that, and the other that's happening in the background, or, some of the kind of secret shit that may be going on. But they can see just from looking at the media, like, this stuff is just fucking insane. This is so backwards. This is just saying the sky is the ground. Inversion, inversion, inversion. More and more people are starting to see that. And so these distractions, these attempts to grab people's attention based on a Pavlovianly trained knee-jerk reaction, it's probably the biggest hot button trigger you can say on the internet is paedophilia. Which I think is a good natural reaction, that people should be, upset and guarded against it, etc. But it is the most successful trigger to press in the public sphere. You want to get people's attention, start shouting about paedophilia. Again, I can reference some of those psyops from only a couple of years ago, where these channels, who were blatantly calling sitting politicians, they were calling them out as paedophiles day in, day out, on every broadcast, video after video. Their channel never gets shut down. In fact, it actively gets promoted. It actively gets trendified, such that now, it's spreading into the mainstream media trendy area. So Branson was in Venezuela. I wondered as well about the connection of the V, because a lot of this stuff possibly revolves around the fifth age, the connection to the V. The V is the vector. There's loads of reasons why it potentially could connect in, the five-pointed star, various things that connect to that five, the fifth age, the fifth column, the fifth Reich, fifth dimension. Some people talking about ascending to the fifth dimension and stuff like that. And it just so happens that now on their list of countries that they've been planning to stomp on and steal all their stuff, Venezuela has now come up. And now Branson is over there. He didn't succeed trying to get a spaceship up in the sky to the moon, but Israel did. So instead, they sent him to Venezuela to put on some concert, to get Bonio and whatever, to do some virtue signaling and sing some soppy songs and make the world think that they really, really care about the Venezuelan people. I'm not a nationalist. Not because I don't care about the people who live in my geography, the society that I'm part of, but because I don't believe in the philosophical concept of nations and nationalism. So I'm not a nationalist. But to me, any group of people who live together and have that kind of cultural, tribal, ethno connection, if they want to consider themselves a country or a nation, to me, that's the same as them saying, I'm part of this tribe, I'm part of this genetic grouping, I'm part of this culture. I've got no problem with that. But I also agree, in a similar way to the nationalist ideology, that if said group of people want to keep to themselves and live their culture, how they live it, and have the society the way they like to have it, and it's consensual, it's not forced on them from above or from outside, then I got no problem with it. That's their choices. That's their free will choices to live together in that way. So if the Venezuelans want to protect what we know as their nation, I'm just being a bit pedantic about the philosophical, political aspects of this. I don't agree with nationalism, but I do agree with bodies, groups of people protecting themselves. So if they want to protect themselves, go for it. It's good on them. Yeah, I've watched the situation in South America slowly build up at least a couple of decades, because I can remember I know I've mentioned this in the past a long time ago, I used to be addicted to the 24-hour TV news when it first started up. And I used to have two TVs on, one with like BBC on when they first started theirs. And I think the other one I had CNN on. It was either CNN or one of the other American channels. I can't think which one. I think it was CNN, but anyway. And I always just used to leave them on in the background. Yeah, not exactly good in the sense of having fucking constant TV shit and you got the repetition cycle and whatever. But it was just, that was the beginning of this mass media reach, this global reach. And I wanted to be able to see what they were talking about on the news, what were global events, what was going on in the world, blah, blah, blah. And I wanted the two so that I could get different points of view from other parts of the world. When I got a better computer that was capable of having multiple windows open, I used to do that. Yeah, I'd have like a radio station playing from somewhere else in the world while I've got CNN playing and shit like that. It's like, Johnny Five, give me data. But the situation in Venezuela could escalate in the coming days, weeks, months, maybe not that long. I think if they push the way they want to, it won't be that long. It will probably be within this week. So we'll just have to see with that. But don't, try and see beyond, or try and stretch beyond the one-sided propaganda that is presented by the Western media, because they're doing exactly the same as they did with other countries. They're telling you that the leader of this country is a bad guy, he's evil, he's nasty, the people are starving to death. They got no toothpaste. That one was classic. They got no toothpaste. What are we going to do? It's like, if you're starving to death, you that bothered about toothpaste. Well, you want food or toothpaste, mate? Nah, Donald Trump's going to send you toothpaste. You can eat the toothpaste, but then it'll fuck with your brain. Oh, never mind. But this is the kind of ridiculous levels it's got to. I'm not saying ignore it. Similar with the other stuff earlier, I'm not saying ignore it. If these questions interest you, then, pursue them, learn from them. But learn from them and move on, keep moving. And don't get caught up in that kind of validation where people will tell you you're non-existent because you don't agree with my belief system. Sorry, mate. I don't need to agree with your belief system. The world will not end just because I disagree with your belief system, because it is just a belief system. I mentioned Branson in Venezuela. I didn't really listen to any of the concert. I saw and heard bits of it that was on some of the news reports. And I listened to Roger Waters do his little clip in support of Venezuela, in support of the Venezuelan people. But other than that, no, I didn't want to listen to Bonio and whatever. No, not interested. I don't mind some U2, but after all these years of him being a money-grabbing toad, and just the way they've ridden on the back of the Irish Troubles, as far as I'm concerned, because I can remember him from right back in the 90s, late 80s, I think, was it, when they first started. Stuff like Sunday Bloody Sunday was, good song. Got a lot of people, raised up, raising their energy up about that situation from history. So fair enough. But now they're just, I don't want to say it because I'll just descend into loads and loads of derogatory labels and swearing and just silliness. Branson made it to Venezuela, but he didn't make it to the moon. And the other bit in my notes is maybe or maybe not. She may not. She may, she may not. Yeah, I can't be asked talking about Brexit either, because really there isn't anything to talk about. They are just turning the handle. They are grinding that chaos machine, that hurdy-gurdy machine, and they're just letting everybody get obsessed with the noise that it's making. Waste of energy. So I'll mention a couple of other things. This is, I was on Just Seeing Friends on Friday night. It was about, in the end, it became about a 6-hour broadcast. So if you got time, you might enjoy listening to it. We were chatting just in general. It's a show that he puts on for his Patreons and his supporters and his friends that he's met online and stuff like that. So it's not covering a singular topic. The conversation moves around on what people want to talk about. But yeah, because he's in Canada, it means I end up having to stay up all night, basically, because it gets to a stage where when it's like 4 or 5 a.m. in the morning, there's not really that much point me bothering going to bed by then. So I might as well just carry on with the conversation and then go to bed after it's all finished, because I'm going to lose the day anyway. Because it's been so long, I'll end up sleeping most of the day anyway. So I might as well do the whole thing, go to bed during the day and catch up and whatever, and try and reset my circadian clock. But Charlotte, good evening, Charlotte, if you're in the chat room. She popped into the chat on Jeff's and asked, how do you manage to do it? And I said something just in jest of like, I'm sustained by leprechaun tears. And she asked, why are they crying? Why you're a horrible wizard, you made them sad. So I just showed them a picture of a Bitcoin. I didn't do anything to them. I just showed them a picture of a Bitcoin. Why would that make a leprechaun cry? It's just a joke to say, look, I actively choose to put the effort in to be there when it, for something like that. I'm not saying I'm going to be there every week. If he hosts it every week, I couldn't do it. It'd do me in trying to be awake each week for that kind of time and whatever. But I'll turn up occasionally. I'm glad to be able to go and chat with him, because I've really appreciated his work over the years. He's put a lot of great information out. He makes a lot of good arguments. I don't always agree with him on everything, but I do agree with him on a lot of stuff. So to me, that's a good starting point. Yeah. But I wanted to mention it in the sense of, if you're surprised to see me pop up in that kind of way, maybe whack-a-mole. One of my main goals or drives that I wanted to do with this environment was being available, so that if somebody wants to have a conversation like that, I'll go, yeah, okay, I'll be there. Even if it takes a kind of effort from me of like, I've got to fucking stay up all night to do this. But to me, it is much more important to be able to demonstrate to people watching that there are connections like that spread worldwide. You're not just limited to a little bubble of your own environment. You're not limited to just the few people that you happen to have connected with online, that you have direct conversations with or whatever. There's a lot of good people out there. It's not all bad shit. And to me, it's important to just demonstrate that. Like, look, there are other people out talking about things similar to you. It's in a completely different country, but a lot of what we often talk about is just as relevant for him in his country as things happening in his country are just as relevant for us over here. Because this situation now is global. The concept of we'll just secure ourselves in our little nation and forget about the rest of the world, it won't work. The reach of this machine now is global. The infrastructure of the machine has been secured as a global infrastructure. The trade alone should help you realize that. The global marketplace now is what matters. Your local community marketplace is secondary in the corporatist structure. What matters the most to them is keeping the trade moving around the world, which includes claiming resources to fuel that system. So a country like Venezuela is just going to be another mark on the map if these people, the fucking people playing this stupid game, if they continue pushing this, then it will be just another mark on the map. And they'll move in there and they'll claim the resources, and those resources will further fuel that global marketplace and its ability to reach around the globe and dominate around the globe. So any nation's desire to separate itself is going to be meaningless. There are no safe havens. And I'm not saying this to be all doom-mongery and shit like that. There are no safe havens to get away from this system. I've said it before. You yourself, within your own lifetime, you might be able to evade it. You know, living out in the jungle or living in a little country somewhere. So, you know, pick a small country, especially a third world country where your money goes further. So, you know, you could potentially live your entire life on just a small amount of money, not like what you would need here in the UK or in America or whatever. You could do that, but your children will see this thing. Your children will interact with this thing. And even if you've got your own, you know, little village, self-sustaining with you and your little community of friends, or you and your family, and you think, you know, F the world and this crazy circus shit that they do, eventually, either in your lifetime or in your children's lifetime, it's going to come knocking on your door. Because this thing is global now. This is what they've been working towards for centuries. And especially when it comes to the technology. That sort of, and I'll try and do this quickly because I'm losing my voice. I'm fucking knackered. But I watched, I can't call it a documentary. It was only half an hour. It was a little presentation on the Thunderbolts Project channel. Hang on, let me find the title of it so I can get it right. Dr. Jerry Tennant, Healing the Body's Electrical Circuitry. Electricity of Life. You know, that's the full title. But if you go to the Thunderbolts Project channel, it's the latest upload on their channel, or you can look in my list of liked videos and it's in there, or yeah, you can just ignore it. Up to you. But the reason I wanted to mention it, and in relation to this technology stuff, because a lot of the argumentation recently has been all about whether the new technology, in particular 5G, what they're rolling out that they're calling 5G, the fifth generation again, there's a V again. There is this argumentum ad infinitum where it's not just the catch-up effect of people who are new to the subject who want to find out whether it's good or bad, what's involved, what's this all about, what is the technology, etc. There is effort being made to perpetuate the argumentation. So they want people to be fighting backwards and forwards, basically about whether this stuff is healthy or not healthy. That's really what it comes down to. Is this stuff dangerous to us? This new technology that they're setting up. And I'm quite happy if people want to say they disagree with me. I'm quite happy if they're going to try and claim that what I'm saying is just opinion. But I would ask them to just please go and do some research, genuine research, not just listen to a video debunking it. Actually go and look at some of the paperwork, go and look at all the stuff that's been pumped out by the system for decades now about this kind of electronic warfare technology. And the reason I thought it was quite synchronistic actually when Thunderbolts put that video up, because I thought that's good timing for me to mention this kind of aspect. When I was chatting with Jeff on Saturday, and that's why I wanted to, Friday night, that's why I wanted to mention that as well. We sort of touched on the subject a little bit. And I've been thinking about this recently. I thought, how else can we approach this question with people where you're not getting bogged down into this argument backwards and forwards of like, you say it's unhealthy, they say no it isn't. You say it is, they say no it isn't. And it's just Punch and Judy bullshit. They're not willing to actually look at the science and the evidence. And you're getting nowhere by suggesting this to them. They're just denial, flatly refusing to do any effort. They just want to be spoon-fed. They want an authority figure to tell them that it's safe. Don't worry about it. Which, of course, the system will. In the same way they told you your phone technology was safe. But now they put warnings in the terms and conditions. So was it truly safe in the first place? Or did they just bullshit you and you bought it? And in the same way with the 5G technology, if you ever listen to that presentation, it's only about half an hour. I think they're planning to put up some more about it. The guy goes into a few different areas, but he's a doctor of medicine. And he talks about the electrical circuit within the body, how that relates to a lot of the knowledge that's been there for a long time about the acupuncture meridians and the collection of points connected into acupuncture, the energy flow, chi flow, etc. And one of the most relevant things that he mentioned that I thought was, like I said, I want to mention this so people would say, if you ain't seen it, please go and look at it. But he talks about how the muscles operate as a battery stack. They are enabling the better production of the electrical circuitry within your body so that your body functions better. This is part of an explanation of why general exercise is good for you, not only physically, but also psychologically. Because that pumping of the electricity, it's not just about pumping oxygen through your lungs and pumping blood through your brain and shit like that. The use of your muscles in that fashion help move that electrical circuit around and help your body expel any buildup of detritus, impurities that you picked up in your body get expelled. Your muscles get cleared out of various impurities and stuff like that. So that process also helps your thinking. Because if you've got a strong spark, your brain, your neural net needs sparks jumping across it to do what it does. Yeah. And that's one of the things that this guy points out about his own experience. He had mental health problems, or brain problems, really, not mental health. He had brain problems, and he researched into this. He looked into this as a doctor, and looking for ways to help himself, to cure himself. And when he altered the way he was approaching his own electrical field, and he started doing things and eating a diet that was to help the generation of that electrical field, his thinking got better again. He actively got reuse of the brain matter that he'd lost the use of. So the other reason I'm mentioning it, on Jeff's show on Saturday, I tried to think of some other ways of approaching the question about the 5G. And it's not just the health, the direct health problems. Because, like I said, as far as I'm concerned, I don't care if people think this is opinion. I've seen more than enough over the years, and I've experienced enough to know that powerful frequency emitters, powerful frequency transmitters will fuck you up. Yeah, when I was in the Navy, when you're on board a Navy ship, some of the transmitters have got big yellow hash circles around them. And they basically mean do not enter when this thing is operating, because if you do, it will fuck you up. It could potentially kill you, depending on what the transmitter is, and what it's pumping out. But the point is, the very concept that they've instilled in the general populace, that these frequencies are just completely harmless. There's frequencies around us all the time, man. Yeah, naturally frequencies that we evolved with, so our body is used to them. Not artificial frequencies that have been introduced into this environment that our bodies are not evolved to cope with or used to. That very concept that, there's nothing wrong with this technology. It's like, you haven't even fucking looked, have you? You're living in such a denial that you can't even look at the terms and conditions in your own smartphone that you love so much and see how it tells you to not hold it next to your head. If it's not harmful, why are they telling you to not hold it next to your head? Is that because you might get cramp from holding it there for so long? This stuff is ridiculous. That they've convinced people in this kind of fashion that they can just pump out a statement saying, it's safe, folks, don't worry about it. We're not going to do any checks before we roll out this technology. No health and safety checks required. We're just going to put it in your area. It's up in your street now. And people are like, oh, yeah, you told us it is perfectly safe. Nothing to worry about. If it's perfectly safe in a health way, they wouldn't be putting in loads of these restrictions, such as like they're covering themselves by putting it in your terms and conditions. They're not putting it in certain schools in some countries. Well, most schools, general education schools, are not putting Wi-Fi in some countries. supposedly, and I haven't researched further into this, so I don't know this to be true necessarily, but supposedly Israel is not implementing 5G. I think that might be, though, because they're probably already ahead of 5G anyway. They're probably already using stuff that far outpaces the frequencies, the microwave frequencies that 5G uses for their own governmental and military structure. I mean, not for the general populace. So they might just not want the general populace having use of it or something like that. But even besides those potential health problems, there is the psychological problems, which are now proving to be true hand over fist. Because now there are more and more people who are addicted to their technology, addicted to the social media interactions, and they have severe problems psychologically and physically when their addiction is taken away from them. So even if you dispute that it has any biological health risks, do you not see the other risks involved with this technology? That kind of psychological effect. I mean, really, that is a health effect because it's chemically addicting people, because it plays on the chemical processes in the brain to get people addicted, just like a fucking drug, just like a junkie. But it's more about the psychological effect that it's having on people, and the way via those tech devices, via the smart media interaction, the fundal slabs and whatever, that's pumping out the propaganda. And that propaganda, like I was ranting about earlier, contains things that are meant to deliberately fuck up your thinking, to mess with you psychologically. Here's a picture of a dead baby on a beach. Are you upset now? Will you follow orders now? Now that you've experienced trauma, are you more open to what we suggest to you next? Oh, austerity's got to go on for another 10 years because the country's in crisis. You're too upset to argue against that because we just showed you a picture of a dead baby. And that is now right in your face. On these smart devices, it's with you 24/7. It wants your attention constantly. They want you to look at this stuff. They want you to open the door and let their malicious, caustic, toxic bullshit into your head such that it fucks with your thinking, so that you no longer know whether you're male, female, black, white, left, right, up, down. What day is it? Is Theresa May still in power? I love Theresa May. She made so many great decisions. I'm going to go down the shops now and buy some GMO and some aspartame. Oh, I wonder why my life's so shitty. I wonder why the world's so fucked up. Maybe it's because I just keep doing the same things again and again and again. And then I wonder why the world's fucked up. But if you watch that presentation, even though he doesn't directly talk about 5G and its potential detrimental health risks, there's various bits in that presentation where it demonstrates that any frequency transmitting technology potentially messes with you. It messes with your biology. It does matter how strong how strong the output is, what frequency is used. Things like that make a difference, yes. Some frequencies we can have on all day long and our biology will cope with it and it's not a problem. But no, it's not carte blanche to frequency technology to say that none of it is a problem and it's not dangerous. It's about the output and the frequencies being used. Sometimes as well, the rhythm, the repetition that's used, if things like the woodpecker are true. I know the building was true, but whether its effects that they claimed were true. So even if it's not, even if you dispute the claims that it's biologically detrimental, I think there's enough stuff out there now that will show that it's psychologically detrimental. And then you can also add in the control system aspect of how it will be detrimental to your freedom. And we can have a long discussion and digression about what do you mean by freedom? What is freedom? Is anybody truly free? Blah, 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 blah. You know what I mean. Stop pissing around the bush. You know what I mean. I piss you all around the bush. It's my bush now. the way they will be able to, they already are able to dip into your digital footprint, copy as much as they want, alter whatever they want, monitor all your interactivities, monitor your trade, your communications, know where you are physically within a certain distance. I think that's getting a lot more accurate now. They probably know I'm sat right here in this room. You know, they don't think I'm somewhere in the room. They know I'm sat right here. You know, all this kind of stuff. You're not worried about that? Is it just the classic fallacy of, oh, you got nothing to hide, mate, you got nothing to fear? Fallacy. You have lots of things to hide. Whether you like it or not, it's just reality. Otherwise, if you don't have lots of things to hide, tell me your bank account number and your password. Come on, give me your bank account number and your password. Oh, you got something to hide then, haven't you? But you trust the government to not do anything naughty with that information, even though they've openly admitted that the Five Eyes, the Six Eyes as I call it, because Israel is involved in this as well, the Five Eyes are exchanging your information backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards. The UK government is not allowed to spy on the entire public. They have to have a justification for doing surveillance. So instead, they ask the Canadians or the Americans or the Australians or the New Zealanders or Israel to send them the data instead, because all those countries, part of the Five Eyes network, can all look at each other's countries and move the information around, all Commonwealth countries apart from Israel. So even if you think like, oh, my government wouldn't do it, it even says in the legislation they're not allowed to. Go and look up the Five Eyes. And you, again, it's back to that naivety and denial, cognitive dissonance thing. You really think that they don't? These people that have the power to exterminate entire ethno-genetic groupings of people because they want their shit, they want their stuff. So they'll happily start a war and stomp on an entire, I don't want to say the word race because I don't feel that that's accurate, but an entire grouping of people, a culture of people, whatever, and hide that, you know, hide what they're doing and pretend they're delivering humanitarian aid. Honest, here, have this vaccine. Don't worry, it's not, oh yeah, it's sterilized. Oh, well, never mind. At least it's still alive for at least another couple of years while we steal all the shit out of your country. Bye. Yeah, that was kind of like my piss take for Bill Gates and the Gates Foundation. Yeah, even though they disguise it as delivering humanitarian aid and shit like that, we're in there like Flynn, messing in those countries, sending in the economic hitmen, sending in the jackals when the economic hitmen don't get a trade going on. And lo and behold, we're back to Venezuela again. So if you think there's nothing wrong with this technology, then I wonder what actual reality you're living in. And maybe you'd be one of the first people to queue up to have yourself downloaded into the cloud, into a VR reality, a virtual reality, a game world. Because you're obviously not here. If you can't see this shit, you can't put two and two together, then are you really even living here anymore? And then we're back to the psyops of, well, you're questioning your own existence because this stuff is making you wonder if even your eyeballs fucking exist. So if you're at that level, why not just plug in and disappear? And you think that that kind of technology is not dangerous. The potentials of that kind of situation are not dangerous. Please stop being so naive. And I know the majority of my audience are not, you know, I've ranted at them for years about this kind of stuff, so I'm sure they're not. They're probably thinking, oh, yeah, Cookie, fucking shut up. You ranted about this for so long. You just keep complaining about technology. And a sort of slight side note about that. That's why I put aerials in the subtitle. You know, the stuff the guy's talking about in his presentation, we are in many ways aerials. We are electromagnetic beings. We generate our own electromagnetic field, we transmit, and we also receive from every field around us in this reality that we live in. Nature abhors a vacuum. Side note, space is not a true vacuum. That is another fallacy that is constantly sold to try and justify why rockets don't work in space. Space is not a true vacuum. There's plenty of evidence to prove that out there, but people believe because they want to believe, not because of there's necessarily good evidence for what they're trying to suggest. Now, distracted myself while I was trying to find a picture to share, and I'm going to have to wait for a minute to open up for this to catch up, because thanks to Microsoft, hello Bill Gates is thanks to Microsoft, my system is now working slow as fuck. They've reset most everything to default settings, so I'm having to work my way through bit by bit, fucking resetting it to the way I prefer it. Yeah. We need to upgrade you. We need to update you. We need to fiddle inside your stuff. They talk about, you got nothing to hide. You got nothing to fear. It's not about anything to hide. Like when I mentioned those fucking spam mails that somebody had been sending out. Like, if people want to open them up and look to see if it's something to do with me, go ahead, but do so at your own risk, because that stuff absolutely looks like phishing scams. So if you're opening and clicking on stuff, you're probably going to get your computer fucked up. Yeah, but I ain't got fuck all. Yeah, I'm not an Illuminati agent, put it that way. Maybe you think I am after I've shown you this picture, but there's many threads that can be connected together from what that guy was talking about on the presentation. I keep saying that guy, Dr. Dr. Tennant. And some of the things that he mentions are not quick and easy study. It's not like it's something that you can just look at one website post about it and learn about it. There's quite a bit of volume of information and argument about it. So I'm not suggesting that you'll watch half an hour video, a 30-minute video, and all of a sudden you'll figure loads of shit out and make loads of connections. Way, no, but there are a hell of a lot of really good signposts, really good, really important signposts. If you've got the kind of curiosity where you question things such as the nature of reality, the shape of the planet, what does it mean when we talk about light traveling through space? Things like, if you've got those kind of questions, then these are some little bits of information that may help you connect quite a few dots. It's on the Thunderbolts project channel, which is connected to the Electric Universe group, who are proposing the electric universe theory. And like I say, if you watch this, maybe it'll help you connect a lot of dots to some of the stuff I've often talked about. Like in this image, the toroidal field and the magnetic field emanation, the shape of that toroidal field created by every electrical interaction, even on a microscopic scale, when there is an electrical flow, because the word we use, electricity, simply means an exchange of charge. So a positive moves to the next molecule along, or atom along, even though the description atom is not, it's not a good one to use anymore because it's not accurate. But that's the basic science of it. It's a movement of positive or negative charge that goes along a flow, a line. Think of a lightning strike coming down and hitting a lightning conductor on the side of a building and going down into the ground and earthing in the ground. That's the movement of electricity, the flow of ions, I think it is, negative ions coming down from the cloud and connecting to the ground, to earth. That's what Tesla was exploiting when he built the Wardenclyffe Tower. He basically built a really big fucking circuit that connected the higher level of the sky, the upper atmosphere, to the ground. It wasn't really high up. It wasn't like cloud level high, but it was high enough up that he could exploit that charge differential between somewhere up there and the ground. And he used it to basically harvest lightning, to create lightning at a whim, from his experimental devices in his lab. So anyway, some of this, again, this is stuff that there's a lot of information packed into this that can connect you to a lot of other stuff. But when, just to sort of clarify something, because I think I mentioned it in the chat on the Raconteurs News guys show, when they're making this claim about space being empty and it's a vacuum and that's why rockets don't work and that's why it can't be real and that's why nothing out there exists, please remember I told you Israel's going to the moon. But the space is not a true vacuum. It's not completely empty. There is now more than enough scientific proof to show that there are large connections between the sun and every other planet, and there are large connections between the solar system itself and other solar systems, not other galaxies, but well, possibly eventually they would reach, I suppose. And that as well potentially connects all the way back to the center of the galaxy, to whatever it is that's at the center of the toroidal force that is generating our galaxy. We're in one of the spiral arms, and it's a spiral arm in the Milky Way. So space is not empty. And the principle of jet propulsion, rocket propulsion, just requires a pressure wave to press against. It doesn't require what we're told is physical matter, because physical matter is not what we're told it is. Physical matter is not solid. It is a little electromagnetic ball of energy, a toroidal field. So all the rocket engine needs is something that's providing pushback so that its expulsion can press up against something and create thrust. So if there are these magnetic and electrical loops and ropes and connections that go between the planets and the other solar systems, that gives the rocket engine something to push against. That means what's outside of the planet's atmosphere is not total vacuum. It's not true vacuum. There is stuff going on out there that causes pressure against us. Otherwise, our atmosphere would just drift away. And of course, this is all if you don't have an absolute belief in a certain flatness of the place you live in. Amsterdam's quite flat. I still did a hell of a lot of walking up and down stairs. They got really steep stairs. But anyway, that was, I highly recommend that, especially if you are interested in this kind of electric universe theory, energetic ideas to do with energy and chi, stuff like that. This stuff connects a lot of the science together. This is not just me making speculations or making non sequiturs where I'm making leaps that connect where there is no true connection. No, the science is out there to back this up. You are an EM transceiver. You transmit an electromagnetic field that is toroidal in shape up until the points where it buffers up against the toroidal field of others. That then is what creates all these bubbles of force. Have absolute belief in a heliocentric model? Yes. No, it's not heliocentric. It's a dual system. It's a binary system, mate. It's not a singular sun. So calling it heliocentric is not really accurate, but I know that's that's what they play with these semantic games of the language they use to try and claim arguments to justify their bullshit. Yeah, I know. There's also the possibility that the sun is not the original center of the solar system. There is quite a bit of evidence to show that the sun was more than likely not what it is now in the distant past. And the shape of the solar system, the position of the planets were different. And the only thing that we might have had that could be called a sun was Saturn. It wasn't Sol. But something changed in the solar system a long time ago that caused Sol to erupt. And I think it's that shifting of the binary, because our binary is more than likely Sirius, a dog star, and it is so far away from us now. That's used as one possible justification for why the system changed. And all of a sudden we had a new center point that reconnected those Birkeland current connections to other solar systems. Possibly. Like all this stuff is theory. Yeah. Well, certainly in that sense of possibly maybe I should say it's predominantly theory when it comes to that kind of Saturn sky thing. There is some evidence to back up this stuff, but it's that long ago. A lot of the evidence is just a bit amorphous. It makes it difficult, certainly, to be able to say this is absolute proof. This is taken as academic dogma kind of thing. No, but there is some good evidence, and there's a lot of good argument to suggest that the solar system has changed, and it could be why we have a schism in our history. I'm more inclined to think that it was more than likely, in terms of the schism, it was more than likely some kind of global catastrophe that caused that, rather than being a solar system catastrophe. I think the solar system catastrophe or change was possibly so long ago that we might not have been here. Maybe then you get into other arguments, again, because there's hardly any fucking evidence to support this. So it's more, ancient history, ambiguity. That's the word. And hopefully I've encapsulated some of the stuff to do with that. That's why I put aerials in the subtitle. We are beings of resonance. You transmit and you receive. Your transmission has a resonance, has an output that other people sense. Walk into a room where there's been a heated argument, even if after the argument has stopped and nobody's shouting anymore, nothing, but you walk in the room and it's like, what's going on in here? That's the energy generated by anger. Anger is an energy. And in the same way, people who get good at this kind of stuff, like Chi masters, Qigong, stuff like that, you can channel that energy, potentially. I'm still open on those kind of topics. I don't take them as proven or sacrosanct, but I'm very open on them. And to me, the theories connecting the electrical or EM, the electromagnetic effects, make far more sense and add up more often, and the observations are more accurate more often than the usual standard model that claims that there is nothing beyond physical matter and gravity. Bollocks. We're far beyond that now. That was school time science. We should have moved on from that now, and some people have. Some people have been trying to point this stuff out for decades, and the academic control system has squished it again and again and again, until now we've got this kind of format where information can spread more easily. They've had just enough elbow room to be able to start consolidating a lot of this stuff and getting good proof to back up their theories. So, this stuff is going to accelerate, and I can see our technology changing radically within the next 50 years, very radically, such that it would be somewhat like the Jetsons, potentially. Let's see. I'm being optimistic. I'm still waiting for my hoverboard. Sorry, guys, I've been ranting ages. Oh, shut up. You've got like half an hour to say something. Get on with it.
Hello. Yes, we're still here.
I am. My voice is gone right now.
Well, yeah. I didn't think you'd make it this long, to be honest, but you did.
The one other thing, I've got a habit of doing this. One other thing that I was thinking about over the weekend, and I did sort of look at, and Gary found some information about that shungite material.
Oh yeah.
And he was saying it's dense carbon.
That's right.
So basically, it's like wood, because that's all wood is. It's dense carbon. Well, it depends on how hard the wood is. Whether it's a hardwood or whatever. Softwood's obviously not as dense, but carbon is basically what wood is. So maybe it is working in the sense of it's acting as just a complete block. It's not diffusing the signals, but it's just acting as a wall.
It's a block, yeah.
Because if you put a transmitter in a wooden box, the wood will reduce the power of that transmission. On a low power setting, it would more than likely block it completely, dependent on the density of the wood.
Well, I was looking at it online. I had a little look and see what was available. Yeah. And you can get something that'll cover, say, a 10-meter radius of a blocker for about 25 quid or less than that. So it's not mega expensive stuff. It's just making sure you get it from the right place.
I may be being overly cynical or suspicious, But like I said when we were chatting about it the other week, I'm just highly dubious about this stuff because it has that air of it makes people become apathetic about the risk of this technology because they just buy one of these stones, stick it on the back of their phone, and think that's it, job done. Don't have to worry about it anymore because I've got my shungite on my phone, mate. So the transmitter's outside your fucking window.
Yeah.
You're going to go and slap shungite on that as well.
You have to go in my shungite trousers and. Yeah. So,
shungite armor. I can't move, but I'm nice and safe in my box.
Well, they've got 300 million tons of it, I think, somewhere in Russia, where it actually comes from. It only comes from one place in Russia.
It's convenient, isn't it?
Yeah, and there's that much there. But the way that the 5G thing, maybe they may be making clothing out of it or something as blockers. Who knows? I mean, we're having a laugh about it, but that's how it looks like they're just going to roll this thing out anyway, and they're not bothering about the health and safety of the public or anybody. So that what else will we have? Expensive protective clothing we can go out and buy, or something,
Faraday suit.
Yeah.
Well, I suppose it could be possible, but it would be awkward as fuck. But basically, like wearing a spacesuit. It's the only way you could do it. It'd have to be completely sealed all the way.
Yeah.
Just
but the 5G, I mean, think how you also mentioned about the EMF, but someone put in the chat as well. We are made of water. We're water-based. Our cells, and where this 5G frequency can then get into your skin or into your cells or cause damage to your system, to your your biology over time as well. Depending on how strong or how weak or how strong signals are in these things. I don't know how much they they constantly pumping it out. Are they do they ramp up at a certain time, or they lower off, or I don't know, but they're going ahead with it anyway. That's what I'm trying to say. They're not there's a lot of awareness now building around around the health and safety aspects of it all, but it's been around for years. I could say it's not new. EMF and the way they've drip fed it into our environment, the way they have over the past sort of more so with the internet, of course, with 3G, 4G, now the 5G, they've just sort of drip fed it out to us. And there was concerns about 4G, lots of concerns. I remember that. And that hasn't gone away.
There was concerns about 1G when it first came out and started spreading.
But now with the 5G being microwave energy, it just takes it up that other, notch. And if that video I saw where the woman has the mobile phone, sorry, not mobile phone, the EMF reader that she's holding in her hands, and she sets it to sort of measure the EMF from the microwave oven. I don't know if anyone's seen that video. And she gets a bit of this what's it called, shungite, and she puts it on the back of the EMF reader, holds it up to the microwave, and the microwave just literally almost drops to hardly anything. Like you say, acts as a blocker, just blocks the signal.
That makes more sense now thinking about it, in the fact that if you put it on the back of the meter, then it would block the meter from taking in any readings. So the microwave would have still been pumping out shit, but her reader wouldn't be able to pick it up because that thing's blocking the sensor. That's dumb as fuck, or that's deliberately deceptive.
And that's with the microwave switched off. Oh, sorry, not actually microwaving food, but just plugged in.
You shouldn't be sticking. That's just back to front, yeah. You shouldn't be sticking the stuff on the actual reader itself, yeah. You're supposed to stick it on the things that are emitting the frequencies that you're worried about, and then read whether.
She put it between the microwave and the read or something. If you see the video, you know what I mean. But it seems to be the blocker that you're saying it is. It blocks it out. So it works.
I find it's an interesting point as well. You're saying that this shungite stuff, only comes from Russia, because Russia have since the space race. You got to go, Gary. Nothing you want to say?
All of this is irrelevant if, like Mark Still says, it kills the trees because then there'll be no oxygen. The trees make oxygen. That was his latest offer. Anyway, I'll say good night. Yeah.
Cheers, Gary.
I left a link for that paper in the chat. Yeah, about the mitochondria and how it affects it. Yeah.
All right, cool.
Cell walls up. It's not nice. Not nice stuff.
Catch you on Wednesday.
Yeah.
All right. All the best, Gary.
Yeah, sorry I waffled for so long and you didn't get a chance to say anything. It's because there's a lot to that subject.
There certainly is. I made, like I say, a few notes and stuff, but you did mention Branson. He also, I did see some videos pop up about his space tourism plane that he's launched. It's done I think it's done 2 flights, I think, with a couple of people on them or something. I don't know how much they've paid. But yeah, also at the back of that concert in Venezuela and all that, he seems to have come in the news a lot again. You know?
He's serving a purpose.
Yeah.
Do you remember when he had the black eye?
Yeah. He fell off his bike, didn't he? Was that his bike?
Yeah, he fell off his bike. Did he really?
Yeah.
I do that. Yeah, your voice just gets slowly higher and higher as you ask a question, and the question, did he really? Are you sure that's what happened? Yeah. Happened to have the eye socket bruise. Yeah. And now he's doing some crappy concert in Venezuela. And really, he hasn't got the ability or the wherewithal to hire people to research the situation and tell him the truth of what's going on. It's a bit like that excuse that the Queen didn't know what Jimmy Savile was. It just doesn't wash.
Yeah. And a bit of publicity for those usual stars they roll out, like you mentioned.
Like Bonio.
Yeah, Bonio, and all the rest of them. But yeah, I didn't see any of that. I wasn't interested in any of it, to be honest. It harps back to the days of Live Aid, which was a complete nonsense. Remember that, 1985, all that way back, Do
they know it's Brexit time at all? Maybe somebody should do that for a single for the 29th. Release it on the 29th.
Yeah, I might say since those times about all the benefit gigs, all the things they do, you see there's not really much happens. There's not much changes. All you end up with is someone like Geldof getting a knighthood and, again, selling out like they all do. Like you say, they all sell out and, eventually, they become what they are, just the whores for the system, in the elite, they use them and they are quite happy to do their bidding in whatever way it is, whether through these World Health Organizations and that kind of NGOs or whatever it is, they're all set up, they'll all be there promoting their crap and adding to their bank balance as they go, which is what it's all about for them, isn't it? Really, it's all about having it all, and
Bonio's got,
the ego. Sorry.
Bonio's got enough money that he could go to Africa and actually help with a lot of the problems that they were singing about with the original Live Aid. But does he ever do that?
No. That's so.
Turns up for the concerts, though. Yeah.
Well, they get appropriate. I mean, they get approached. I mean, a lot of these bands, as we know, that's how it works. They have to follow a certain line, or they just fall into it anyway because they're just daft and they go that direction. The way they want them to go. They don't question it, and that's what happens generally. I saw it with, was it Muse? Remember them back in the day? With their single back in 2009 about all that waking up, and next thing you know, they're hosting the Olympic Games. Which, we all know what the Olympic Games all is about and what represents all that stuff. And we used to harp on about it back in the day because we,
How many rings are there?
5.
Yeah, a V again.
But yes, and
maybe I could throw in that mimetic discantation. I'm saying discantation because recently it got put out as a mimetic incantation to stick in your head, and many people got caught up with it, and it's like a brain worm. It's fucking annoying shit. But I came up with a slightly different version that should hopefully make you laugh, which will help your brain expel the original brain worm. My version is rock, paper, scissors, vagina always stinks. If you don't know what I'm referring to, you're lucky. Don't worry about it. Don't go and look at those videos because they're just no.
That harps back to Valentine's thing, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Or was it the other week?
Yeah. Valentine's Day, the vagina, the Galentine's Day, where they've swapped the V for the G. Yeah, there's whole loads of shit like that going on at the moment.
But ultimately, I mean, what I put down here was ultimately talking about a lot of things to do with the internet and how they do all this stuff. It's more the censorship thing And that's what it comes down to, you know, that comments thing,
Yep.
you know, shutting down or being able to edit or change comments or just kick you out comments, whatever, after, you know, to basically have more of a censorship role in that, you know, where it's not a free comment, you just put, you know, you put whatever. Now they're going to appropriate the comment sections of things, and we've seen that happen anyway. I mean, Gary's gone now, but I remember him talking about it ages ago, you know, with the Daily Mail and stuff like that, and other people have talked about, you know, where comment sections are being censored more and more and more and more by, you know, websites and stuff, and you know, they don't want people to put their, you know, real, you know, what's really happening, what they really think, or, you know, criticizing the system and getting people to think. They're shutting those sorts of things down, and this is all part of it, you know, using the paedophile stuff for, you know, as a reason to do it as well, you know, which is what they do all the time. They use a horrific story or a horrific thing and then bring in censorship, bring in legislation or whatever it is, and that's how they do it. Problem, reaction, solution stuff, isn't it? Classic stuff. So,
or they attach it to an already pre-created, I was going to say label, but it's more than just a label. It comes with a cultural dogma behind it, a policing dogma. You know, they just label you as mentally ill because of some of the subjects you talk about.
Yeah, and they've been good at doing that, haven't they?
They just associate you with certain topics that for the most of the general public, they consider to be crazy and too far out there, like Ike and his lizard people,
Yeah.
So all they do is go, oh, look, he listens to David Icke, therefore he's mentally ill, therefore discount everything he says, job done. And they've been doing that for a long time, but they've really, you know, refined that system in this internet environment now, and the comment section control is just a further part of that.
Yeah.
If they can't shut you down directly because it would alert too many people, you know, it'll make you look like a martyr or some shit like then all they've got to do is shadow ban you or hit you with those kind of labels so that people just ignore you, or you end up worse, you know, you could get institutionalized and shit.
Or the fact that we're aerials and we're energy, and we harness that, and we knew how to work that correctly, which back in the day I think we did, we wouldn't even need the internet to communicate with each other. We could just do it via the
rocks.
Yeah, via
you
whatever.
Just get rocks and bang them together.
Can you
hear that in Wales?
You'll hear me, you know, you'll hear me in your head, in your awareness or whatever. You'll be able to know, yeah, that sort of stuff. I reckon that's the way it would work, worked in the past, and that's the sort of power we have. But that's the knowledge they don't want you to know. Like I say, that energy, and the fucking.
I am saying.
Yeah, go on. Sorry.
I am saying it a little bit as a joke.
Yeah.
But there is some backing to the fact that frequencies can travel underground. Electrical frequencies can travel for long distances underground. Communication can be done without wires, but instead by charging electricity and sending it out from the transmitter. Yeah.
Well,
the Gwen towers, they work by not transmitting into the air; they transmit into the ground.
Well, how did we?
I'm saying it as a joke, but in effect, I think some of the ancient peoples knew about that, and some of the sites are located at points where, in some manner, they could do some kind of communicating across distance. I'm not suggesting they could do like telegraph or send each other emails, but there's something more than just, oh yeah, there's that site over there, and there's that site over there, and there's that one. No, they're interconnected in some manner.
Yeah. I forgot what I was going to say now. I was going to say something then.
Sorry, but I get into it.
It's just gone.
You were talking about the energy and harvesting the energy correctly into your body.
Yeah, that sort of putting it out there. That's what I was going to say. Yeah, that ancient civilizations, they had the ability to be able to pinpoint the energy points. You know, like you said about the meridians on the body, like acupuncture. You know, we have energy points there. But excuse me, they also would be able to harness that pineal gland, say, and they could pick up that energy from, you know, well, why did they build on the areas they built? Where was the, you know, the ley lines, if you like, or the energy grids on the planet, which is another, you know, manifestation of, you know, that's what we are. We're energy. We've got energy grids on us. The energy grids on the planet, you know, it's so we were able to build in areas where it would give us water and things like that.
Yeah. The majority of them all across the planet have got
natural
three,
springs and things of this nature. We could survive.
three geological correlations.
Mm.
Either water, or it's some kind of chalk-based material, because that carries conductivity quite well, or it's some kind of quartz or basalt material, because that also carries conductivity quite well.
But somehow we pick it up. Some people pick it up now. I feel energy when I walk into stone circles or places that are sort of churches or weird stuff. You feel weird, or you feel this different change of stuff. Some people do, some people don't. I mean, some people argue, it's your brain. You've got more of a mineral or something, and it's like, well, if that is or isn't the case, it doesn't matter. Some people will feel this energy. We are a biological.
I think it's a combination. Like I've had other people say to me about churches and churchyards and stuff like that, and I know what they mean, because I can sense a similar effect when I go to places like that. But I think there is a combined effect there, where there is an element of biological, most likely via the pineal gland and by your other senses that we're not attuned so well to. It's just that ambient, holistic sense rather than one individual sense. But also there's a cultural element that is included to it that encourages your mind to go that direction. It encourages your energy to flow in a certain way. And with a lot, just on the point of the churches in particular.
Well, I was going to say, Cookie, they're built on energy lines anyway from the past, aren't they? So that's where they put them deliberately there. So. And
all churches, unless they don't have any kind of spire at all, you will find some that are just like a hall. Often Methodist churches are just a hall. There's no spire or anything like that. But certainly the older churches, the Norman and whatever, medieval period churches, absolutely, they were built on known sites that already existed, that were considered holy or special by the local people. And then over the years, certainly within the last century, nearly every single one of them, like I said, anyone that has a spire will have a lightning conductor on it. That lightning conductor, even when there's no lightning firing, that lightning conductor is earthing that entire building, and it's pulling ions from the up above. I can't say upper atmosphere because it's not that high, but it's far above your head. It's 20, 30, 40, 50 feet above you, depending on the height of the spire. But the conductor is constantly flowing down into the ground. So it's earthing the entire area. It's creating a flow that goes down into the earth in that area. And when, like we said, a lot of these places, a lot of these churches are built on top of already known sites, I think that amplifies the effect. So when you go there and you have the cultural element of, well, it's a place of worship, I've got to be respectful, quiet, dignified, it creates it, that all adds to the effect, so that it amplifies your inner pineal and gut sensation of like, this area is special. There's something about this area that makes me feel at ease, comfortable, grounded. And the ancients knew about these places and they respected them, they marked them, and then we come along and build fucking churches on them. But I do think when you go to those older sites, especially the old churches, and you have a look, they'll have a lightning conductor on.
Yeah.
I argue that's a big part of what's going on there.
Well, you're talking, say, not very high, 30, 40 feet. Some of them are hundreds and hundreds of feet.
Like Salisbury.
Yeah.
It's got the tallest spire.
A church not too far away from me with a huge spire, and that would say, that's 100 odd feet or whatever. It's quite a tall spire, really tall one. But yeah.
That and combined with the sacred geometry used in the actual construction of the building. Think of it as like an amplifier. That's what they were building.
But surely
they were trying to emulate.
Surely maybe where they've co-opted the energy there, where you're saying it's grounding it and bringing it down. Maybe the way that they've done that is it needs to also flow out and up as well, and down. So they've actually fucked up the whole site, if in that sense, energetically wise.
It could
flow either way. Should flow both ways, so you have the grounding and that sort of other flow.
Or your own personal energy gets taken with it.
Yeah.
And once it connects to whatever you know, if it's an underground stream or a vein of basalt rock or something, it gets washed away with that.
Yeah.
Possibly. Yeah. I can see what you're saying. Yeah.
Because that's how they sort of, if you like, destroy it, if you like, or you know, keep us in the dark, as they do, as I always say. You know, they don't want you to know anything really.
Jason's put in the chat, I've got the lightning conductor the wrong way round. Does it flow upwards? I'm guessing he's typing quick now. Am I getting the flow direction wrong? That's probably what I'm doing. Which way is the charge negated? Because that's what it's doing. You know, it's trying to balance the charge that's in the upper atmosphere and the ground. So I'd still say it's the same principle that I'm describing, mate, but maybe it's that process of taking it upwards that's giving you the sensation of the grounded energy. Because the energy that's in the place, if it's going upwards, is being sent off up into the sky. It goes that way round, maybe. Right. I think you mean, yeah, lightning isn't drawn from the earth, but the charge is drawn from the earth. The charge is generated by the friction of the movement of the atmosphere. So, yeah, really, it's both. It's not being generated just one-sidedly. Yeah, Cherish has put in the chat both, yeah. Like some Tatso is saying it work both ways. I'm not sure on that, mate, but yeah, it wouldn't. You know, it still doesn't change the kind of thing I'm trying to describe. That process of exchanging electricity in that area is what gives, for many people, gives them that sense that there's something here. There's some kind of energy here. And I think it's the same when you go to places that are like standing circles or barrow mounds, you know, ancient sites like that.
Yeah, I've certainly felt it at Avebury. Certainly there.
Well, a lot of them are built out of granite or basalt or slate. Yeah. And all of those things are fairly conductive. Anything that's a quartz base, it's got quartz in it because it's the, I think anyway, I might just be getting it wrong, but I think it's right. It's the sodium crystals that run like veins through the quartz. They're what carries the electricity because they've got the kind of low resistance that it would put, you know, electricity follows the shortest path, the path of least resistance, I should say. In the same manner as if you have low salts in your own body, and this connects back to that video, the Dr. Jennings video on the Thunderbolts channel, yeah? If you've got low salts in your body, you're thinking he's going to be clouded. Yeah, you need a certain amount of salts in your body. You don't need the kind of table white salt shit that they sell us in the supermarkets. That's not good sodium. But if you get something like rock crystal, like the Himalayan salt, or the
Celtic is good.
Yeah, the Celtic sea salt. Anything that's got that crystalline mineral basis, because it's the sodium, I think, that is primary to the process, the passage of the electrons, the charge, as far as I remember. So yeah, it's about.
Yeah, well, that's another thing. Deplete our nutrients, our you know, in our food to stop those processes happening more and more. So we are dumbed down in that way. You know, dumbing you down.
I'm not suggesting anyone gets a salt lick. Well, what you got that for? Improve my thinking.
Can't fire your brain up properly, really.
Maybe we should start a salt lick lollipop company and call it Brain Force.
We can get that salt. You know that they'll rip you off on these new age sort of health websites with Celtic sea salt and stuff. Just go to France. Go directly. Not France. You can get it online, whatever. But it costs not very much for a huge bag of it, and that's what I use, and it lasts you years. And I gave you some cookie, didn't I? So much of it. So yeah, and it's dead cheap. But if you go to certain websites, they'll rip the shit off you. So yeah, just do your research and find it cheap, and don't get ripped.
Oh,
that's my advice for the day.
It's definitely good advice. That's one beneficial use of the internet.
Yeah.
Make that kind of beneficial use while you can. Try and avoid the big fuckers like Amazon and all that shit. But There's other ways you can purchase stuff, you know. Not everything in the world comes out of Amazon.
Yeah, the companies who make for Amazon actually sell you direct as well. Don't forget, they're quite happy to sell you, and probably, you know, that's what people forget. Like, say, it's the one-stop creation of you know, of everything now. Like the supermarket was, now it's the internet version. Now we've got with Amazon. All the other.
A lot of the supermarkets are dying now. I know we've spoken
They
about
are.
this recently. Yeah.
I mean, Sainsbury's want to go into partnership with Asda, for fuck's sake. That's how bad it's getting. You know?
Oh, I only read a little bit of the chat. Sorry, folks, I wasn't able to keep up while I was in mass rant. I was doing my shout at the psyops bullshit. Because I do, whenever it comes to that kind of shit, I always end up getting ranty.
It's a trigger. It's a trigger.
For me, I feel strongly about it because I think one of the biggest problems we have at the moment is people struggling to deal with information available to them, or thinking through just simple logical questions or ideas. They fall over themselves constantly making illogical presumptions, you know, just making simplistic mistakes.
Yeah.
It's down to the way we're educated in the general education, combined with the saturation of the media that reinforces all of those mistakes. So they want you to stay dumb. So to me, it's frustrating that it's like, you know, come on. I keep saying to you, use your brain a little, use your brain a little bit, yeah, and they just keep spraying this crap at us. It's like, no, stay dumb, stay dumb. People are like, yeah, I prefer dumb, thanks, mate. But anyway, yeah, I've ranted enough for tonight. I'm sure people have had enough of it.
Thank you very much for tonight.
We'll talk about what we want to talk about. Good. That's the main thing, please. You know, take that away as the main thing. If you want to talk about stuff, that's up to you. That's your choice. You do what you want with your own life, your own energy, your own attention, etc., etc. But my shouting, hopefully, will, you know, be a little signpost or flag of warning, so that you have a bit more consideration when you're looking at this stuff, and hopefully that will help you, you know, tap dance through the minefield kind of thing. So yeah. Anyway, thanks.
I was going to say, and it is a minefield. Yeah. So.
Yeah. There's no field. It's just a sea of mines. Yeah, that's the new controlled 5G future.
Yeah.
No field whatsoever. That makes me want to quote Rumi now as well. Beyond the ideas of right doing and wrong doing, there is a field. I will meet you there. That's a good one to end it on. I say thanks in the chat. Thanks for joining us, folks, for these couple of hours. Please go and check out other channels I mentioned and videos I mentioned and whatever. I will at some point get round to putting them in a comment under the link under the video. Might take me till tomorrow to get round to that because I'm knackered and I just want to fucking doze and relax now and then go to bed. But I will get to it, and I will come back and read through the chat. So thanks for participating, joining in the chat. Yeah. Tomorrow night, the Racketeer News guys will be on again with another guest. I'm not sure who it is, but check the channel out. I know it's listed on there. It's already scheduled, I think, so you can have a look and check them out tomorrow night. We'll be back on Wednesday night with the reality chat.
Yep.
And on Saturday night, still we'll be back with the mystery show. I forgot to say this earlier. I don't know if you're still in the chat, Steve. I know I've said this to you before, mate. I'm happy for you to talk about what you want to talk about. So, you know, I'm not going to be sending you, sort of a list of questions like, please talk about these things, because I know you're good at talking about a lot of stuff. And I'm happy with the level of music you play. Please don't just become a radio station. I know some people want you to just be a radio station, but I like listening to what you're talking about. I like listening to the ideas. I might not always agree with them, but I'd rather hear that. Yeah. I like the format of a bit of music, a bit of talk, a bit of music, a bit of talk. I think it works really well. So yeah, check Steve Tagusi's channel out, and he'll be on again on Saturday. So thanks again, folks. Cheers.
Cheers.
Do the spaz hands.